Hello everyone, and welcome to EPA WaterSense Program's Assess, Track, and Realize Payback training that's being put on as part of the Hotel Challenge training webinar series. My name is Kim Wagner. I'm a supporting contractor to EPA's WaterSense program, and I will be moderating this presentation. First, I'd like to introduce the three presenters you'll be hearing from today. Hosting this webinar is Tara O'Hare with U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's WaterSense program. Tara currently serves as the Implementation and Commercial Outreach Lead for WaterSense. She is responsible for program operations, partner support, and outreach to commercial and institutional facilities. Tara is currently managing the Hotel Challenge and was responsible for the release of WaterSense at Work Best Management Practices for Commercial and Institutional Facilities, which you'll hear more about during the presentation. Our second speaker, Holly Cannon from ERG, also a supporting contractor to WaterSense, is an environmental scientist who focuses on water efficiency in the commercial and institutional sector. Specifically, she conducts water use and conservation assessments and does water management planning for various federal clients. She also works with WaterSense to develop technical specifications for recognizing water-efficient products and assisted in publishing WaterSense at Work. Finally, we'll wrap up the presentation with a case study presented by Rob Morris with Caesars Entertainment. Rob is the corporate manager of utilities and engineering within Caesars Entertainment's Enterprise Facilities and Engineering Department. Rob led the company's transition to a third-party utility bill pay service, which dramatically enhanced the reporting capabilities. Rob has managed numerous energy and resource efficiency projects across Caesars Entertainment's properties. Before we begin, I'd like to briefly go over some housekeeping items. All attendees are muted to minimize background noise. If you have a question during the presentation, please type it into the chat box in the upper right-hand side of your screen. We're going to have a dedicated time for Q&A at the appropriate breaks throughout the presentation. Lastly, we are recording this webinar for posting to the WaterSense website. After the webinar, please feel free to direct any of your colleagues or business contacts to this recorded training if you think it would benefit them. At this time, I'll hand it over to Tara to review the agenda and begin the presentation. Tara?
Thank you, Kim, and welcome to all of you who are joining us today. Let's start by discussing what we'll cover. First, I'll provide a brief overview of the WaterSense program and the intent of the WaterSense Hotel Challenge. I'll also highlight common water use areas within hotels. Following the introductory material, Holly will cover the water management process, including how to conduct a water assessment at your facility. Finally, I'll invite Rob to present a case study on conducting water assessments in their facility that helped them, Caesars Entertainment Enterprise, reduce water use significantly. So, for starters, what is WaterSense? WaterSense is a voluntary program that launched in 2006 to bring together a variety of stakeholders to promote water efficiency, provide consumers with easy ways to save water, encourage innovation in manufacturing, and to reduce water use and the strain on water resources and infrastructure. The WaterSense label that you'll see on the right side of the slide provides a simple way for consumers to identify water-efficient products, homes, programs, and practices. To date, there are more than 10,000 different models of products that have earned the WaterSense label. WaterSense approaches water efficiency from many angles to get information out as widely as possible. We use WaterSense labeled fixtures and technologies to give consumers and businesses a simple way to find water-efficient products. We've developed best management practices for areas such as commercial buildings and water-smart landscapes to help facilities and homes design, operate, and maintain their buildings as efficiently as possible. Finally, we work with our partners and stakeholders to educate users and change behavior to save water in other aspects of daily water use. The WaterSense program currently has, as I mentioned, 10,000 labeled products, and we have basically worked to help consumers identify the products that have been independently certified for water efficiency and performance. The label is reserved for products that reduce water use by at least 20% and perform as well or better than their less efficient counterparts. Through 2012, WaterSense has helped consumers save a cumulative 487 billion gallons of water and over $8.9 billion in water and energy bills. There are more than 10,000 labeled product models available, and they are in stores hopefully near you. Products that are currently eligible for the WaterSense label include tank-type toilets, shower heads, laboratory faucets, flushing urinals, commercial pre-rinse spray valves, and irrigation controllers. WaterSense also intends to release a draft specification for flushometer valve toilets later this year. WaterSense also works closely with its partner, Energy Star, since water factors are included in many Energy Star specifications. To help commercial and institutional facilities understand, manage, and reduce water use, WaterSense developed WaterSense at Work, a compilation of water efficiency best management practices. These BMPs provide guidance on water management planning, water use monitoring and education, sanitary fixtures and equipment, commercial kitchen equipment, outdoor water use, mechanical systems, laboratory and medical equipment, and on-site alternative sources of water. WaterSense at Work also includes case studies that highlight the water and energy and cost savings achieved by some commercial and institutional facilities who have implemented them. So, where do hotels use water? Now that there are labeled products on the shelves and the best management practices have been released, WaterSense is beginning to work with some commercial sectors individually to promote water efficiency. This year, we're focusing on the hotel sector. This graph shows how water is typically used in hotels. As you can see, approximately 30% of a hotel's water use comes from guest room sanitary use, which includes showers, faucets, and toilet use. Laundry makes up another huge portion of a hotel's water use. Water use for landscaping, commercial kitchen equipment, and building cooling and heating are also significant. Each hotel's individual water use breakdown will obviously vary based on the specifics of the facility. For example, a hotel in downtown Manhattan with no pool or landscaping will have a much different water use breakdown than a resort hotel with a golf course and day spa in Phoenix, Arizona. A first step to water management planning is assessing your hotel to determine how exactly you are using water so you know where to focus your water-saving efforts. So why should you save water in hotels? First, the hospitality industry accounts for approximately 15% of total water used by commercial and institutional facilities nationwide. So there is a big potential for water savings if everyone does their part. On a more specific note, saving water can help substantially reduce operating costs. Water and sewer costs are rising faster than the consumer price index over the past decade, and there are no signs of price increases slowing down, particularly in more arid regions of the country and areas where there is significant drought. Saving water not only reduces your water and sewer bills, but it can also save the energy used to heat water. In addition, saving water and improving equipment efficiency often reduces maintenance costs and the man-hours required for repairs. In addition to the monetary bottom line, demonstrating water efficiency will also increase your competitive advantage in today's growing green travel marketplace. In fact, a recent survey by TripAdvisor found that 79% of travelers place importance on choosing eco-friendly accommodations. You can demonstrate leadership in your community and encourage others to take similar steps to reduce environmental impacts by participating in a hotel challenge to reduce water use. So, what is the WaterSense Hotel Challenge? We created the Hotel Challenge to encourage and assist hotels in saving water. As part of the challenge, WaterSense will provide participants with the tools to act, assess water use and saving opportunities, change products and processes to incorporate BMPs, and track water savings. Once your hotel takes the pledge on the WaterSense website, you'll receive emails that include several items to promote your participation, including a participant logo to post on your website, social media outlets, in brochures, on a window cling, or in-room or lobby signage. Hotels will also receive a certificate of participation signed by EPA and, where relevant, the WaterSense partner organization that recruited them. You can hang this in your lobby or wherever you see fit. We'll also provide simple language to use in your in-room binders, websites, and guest television service. Every hotel that takes the pledge will receive monthly water-saving tips, as well as reminders about WaterSense webinars and case study examples of the best management practices in action. But the real benefit to taking the hotel challenge is all the technical information and training you'll receive free from WaterSense. The training webinar series, which includes this webinar, will walk through the best management practices identified in WaterSense at Work that are applicable to hotels. We plan to discuss each major water use area in a separate training webinar to inform the challenge participants of proper operation and maintenance procedures and potential retrofit and replacement options to save water. Each webinar will also include a case study from a hotel. Later in the spring, WaterSense will release water assessment worksheets and a water assessment and project evaluation tool. The worksheets will help guide hotel managers and facility personnel in performing a water assessment so they can use the tool to evaluate and prioritize projects. We'll discuss the upcoming webinars in our series and the tool in more detail later in this presentation. Before Holly goes over the 7 steps of water management planning, I'd like to open the floor to any questions on WaterSense, the Hotel Challenge, and other content presented so far.
If you have any questions at this time, you can type them into the chat box at the right of your screen, and we'll take them in the order they're received. Okay, we have a question. What would be some examples of the miscellaneous 12% uses in a hotel?
The miscellaneous 12% uses would be, let's see, I would say spas. If someone has like an actual spa in their facility, or additional, actually Holly might be the best one to answer this question.
Yeah, I think where you were going is right. You know, some hotels will have some retail space or other type of usage that's a part of their building that may not necessarily be captured under these. So if there's a salon with salon sprayers or a spa or something like that, that could be accounted for in the miscellaneous. Let's see what else is not covered here that could be major. We didn't directly cover any single pass cooling of equipment. If you have any ice makers that are operating under single pass cooling, that could be captured under that category. And I think that pretty much covers it. That's a interesting question to answer off the top of my head there.
We have another question. How is WaterSense partner information included on the certificate or logo for posting?
We have created a few versions of their certificate. So if a WaterSense partner, like a water utility, has recruited a hotel in their area, basically the WaterSense signature would be on one side of the certificate, and the signatory person from the water utility would be on the other. So both organizations would be presenting their certificate to the hotel.
Okay, great. I don't see any more questions at this time, so I'm going to turn it over to Holly to discuss water management planning.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kim. In order to meet EPA's challenge to the hotels to act, you'll first want to assess your hotel to determine how exactly you're using water, so that way you know where to focus your water-saving efforts. As the business management adage goes, you can't manage what you don't measure, so measurement is key. Water management planning serves as the foundation for any successful water reduction effort, and a first step in water management planning is conducting a water assessment. The water assessment can help facility managers identify and resolve water losses such as leaks, recognize fixtures, equipment, systems, and processes where water can be used more efficiently in your hotel, educate employees and occupants about water efficiency, and identify opportunities for reusing water on site rather than discarding it to sewer. The water assessment can also help you track water use and establish a facility water use baseline, which is very important going forward with your planning. Ongoing monitoring of your water use can help you identify leaks and other problems. And facility and corporate level water management consists of 7 basic steps, and I'm now going to examine each of those. The first step in any management program is making a commitment and taking the hotel challenge pledge, which I think many of you have done on our website, and that's how you got here. That demonstrates your commitment to using water more efficiently. You can ensure your commitment is long-term and that all organizational levels within your hotel, from the CEO down to the facility manager and the hotel staff, have bought in. You need to form a dedicated water management team. The team should include employees from different levels of the organization, including building managers, shift managers, corporate environmental personnel, and maintenance staff. From within the team, you'll want to identify a team leader who can take control of water management and the water efficiency projects and really take ownership and keep your agenda moving forward. Next, have the team develop a water management policy. This will help establish and achieve water management goals, and you want to make sure to incorporate water efficiency and water management policy into any long-term facility objectives and corporate performance and sustainability reporting that you may already do. So if your hotel is already covering energy and recycling and other types of sustainability elsewhere, you want to make sure you incorporate water management into those processes as well. And if you have an environmental management system or EMS, incorporate the water efficiency policies and goals into that as its separate environmental management program. The graphic on this slide provides some examples of what can be accomplished at each level of your organization with regard to water management. High-level managers can set goals, prioritize action items, and provide resources to manage and track water use. Facility managers could assess operations and implement efficiency measures. The purchasing agents for your hotel can consider water use prior to making product choices, and hotel managers and operating staff can promote behavioral changes to using water efficiently. These are just some examples of how your entire organization can be involved. The next step is the most involved step, and it requires an assessment of your facility's water use. To properly assess your hotel, you'll need to gather readily available information on the sources of water, review your recent water bills, establish a water use baseline, inventory all major water-using fixtures, equipment, systems, and processes, and create a facility water balance. So first, you'll gather readily available information. To do so, develop an understanding of building operating characteristics, essentially taking the pulse of your building. Survey operations and maintenance personnel to determine facility operating conditions and determine where and when water is being used. Define how water is used within the facility. Is it only municipally supplied potable water that you have, or do you also have non-potable water from an on-site well, recovered rainwater, captured air handler condensate? Do you purchase reclaimed water from your water utility? For each source, you'll want to pinpoint and record basic meter information like the meter location, the end use that it's servicing, and billing account numbers if available. In the same vein, determine if any of those sources are not metered, so anywhere that water use is not tracked. This is common for an on-site well that you may be using that you're not being billed for by the water utility, or recovered rainwater, or any source of on-site alternative water that you haven't put a meter on. During your review, identify areas you may want to install water meters to track your water use, so any area where any major source that isn't already metered, and then sub-meters that you may want to track from an end use that uses a particularly large amount of water, like your cooling tower. Gather and review all of your water bills for the past couple of years to understand use patterns and the cost of water and wastewater services. And for unmetered sources, gather any data that could help you estimate water use, such as flow rates or pumping capacities. Here's a sample water utility bill. When looking at water bills, there are a few important items to note, and they're all sort of called out here in the red boxes. First, you'll want to determine the time period you were billed for. Water bills are typically provided monthly or quarterly. Next, you'll determine your water cost. In this example water bill, there are different tier levels for water charges. The highest tier level should be used when you're assessing your potential cost savings, up until a lower tier threshold is met by implementing water efficiency. So when you want to calculate your payback, you want to make sure you're getting the best bang for your buck. So use the highest tier that you're being billed for, because that's the water that you'll be reducing first. As is common and shown on this bill, sewer charges are often calculated based on water use. So therefore, reducing your water use will also save you on sewer cost. And the last and most obvious piece of information to be pulled from your bill is your water use. This example bill covers 2 separate water meters. You'll want to make sure that you track all of the water meters at your facility, including your hotel's total water use. So if you have 2 incoming meters to your hotel, you'll want to make sure to add those 2 meters together to get a total picture of what you're using. And if the water use trend graph is shown on your bill, as is here in the bottom right of this bill, be sure to review it and look for any abnormal water use. So you'll be able to quickly identify trends, and if something seems out of place, you can usually quickly pick that up just with the naked eye. So for example, in this bill, we see that February has abnormally high water use. So there's a pretty solid trend there, down in the winter and then up in the summer, but February has that peak, and that may indicate that there's a leak and that something needs to be addressed. If a water use trend isn't provided, we definitely recommend graphing information from your water bills yourself so you can identify and analyze your water use trends. It's very important to keep an eye on that, and you'd be surprised how many leaks and other malfunctions can be identified just from keeping track of your water use information. After you've gathered and reviewed your water use data, you'll be able to establish your water use baseline. So to do so, you'll want to use your water bills to record data from the past few years to document the facility's water use history. And you'll want to take a representative year time period and assign that as your baseline. So if you're looking at the past 3 years of data and 1 year just is abnormally high, you had a really big drought and you weren't able to use as much water as you normally do, so that would be abnormally low. Or on the other side, if it was very hot and you were running your cooling tower extra and you had much more water use than normal, you may want to try to normalize or maybe average those 3 years to really get a representative baseline. And you can use Energy Star's Portfolio Manager to track your water use, your water costs, and your energy use. It's a great online tool, and you can use that for free. You can use the billing information and other data that you've gathered to calculate your total annual use for each meter and unmetered source. Then you can calculate your hotel's total water use for all sources. So as I mentioned before, if you have 2 meters coming into your facility, or maybe you have 2 meters coming into your facility and you're also using an on-site well to irrigate, you want to add all 3 of those uses to really get a picture of how much total water you're using on your campus before you set any goals. Once you have a water use baseline established, you can begin to inventory your major water using fixtures, equipment, systems, and processes so you can nail down exactly where your water is being used. You want to look at everything at your facility that's using water and really understand where that water use is going. So first, to identify some of your larger water uses, you can actually look back at that water billing data you plotted when establishing your baseline, so look back at that trend. And spikes in water use during the summer months that I pointed out in that water bill as well typically indicate water use from building cooling, outdoor irrigation, and outdoor pool use. And then the winter months when water use is lower, that typically speaks to any constant water use you have throughout the year. So sanitary fixtures in guest rooms, for example, that are constantly being used, laundry equipment that you may have that's being run all year, a commercial kitchen that you may have. That standard baseline in the winter can account for all those uses. Next, you'll want to perform an in-depth tour of your facility to look at all of your water using equipment and water meters. And during your inventory, you'll want to note any obvious areas for improvement. If you have any leaking fixtures, any single pass cooling, any outdated equipment that you can automatically note down and jot down that you've got to fix that as soon as possible. And really important, during your walkthrough, you'll want to interview any specific personnel in charge of managing any one water using system or equipment. And this can help you really understand the day-to-day operation patterns and verify water use estimates. It can be really helpful to ask personnel for improvement suggestions since they work closely with the technologies. So for example, though you may manage your whole facility, you might have someone on staff who manages just your cooling tower, and that person may be really familiar with how much makeup water you're adding to that system, what the cycles of concentration may be, and any ideas that they have for reducing that total water use, like adding air handler condensate to the system. So you want to make sure to interview that person who's an expert on that system when you're doing your walkthrough. During the walkthrough, you'll want to make sure to capture detailed equipment and fixture information to help you estimate daily water use later in the process. So for example, you'll want to record the flush volume of your toilets, the flow rate of your faucets, and the make and model of your ice machines and laundry equipment. Oftentimes the make and model information specifically, you can use that later in a Google search to gather a lot of information on how much water those pieces of equipment use exactly. And during your walkthrough, you'll want to look for drain lines that are plumbed to floor drains. This can help you identify mechanical equipment and processes that should be included in your inventory. So oftentimes when I'm going around to my federal clients and doing a water assessment at those facilities, I'll take a look for all the drain lines in the mechanical room that I'm in, and if there's a pipe plumbed to that drain line, I'll just trace it back to the equipment, and then there I found, an air handler that's discharging condensate or something else that I want to keep my eye on. Finally, you'll want to locate any water meters so you can track water use from those meters as part of your water management plan. And when possible, you'll want to verify use of certain equipment or fixtures by actually collecting some water use data. So you'll want to use a bucket to manually check flow rate over time, such as a 30-second or minute interval. And for some of the larger water using equipment or processes, you can consider installing a temporary water meter or flow meter to monitor water use if you can. Okay. So while conducting your inventory, you'll want to use survey forms or checklists to help you keep track of all this information. You'll be gathering quite a bit of information. And Tara mentioned that the water assessment worksheets WaterSense is going to release along with the tool this spring will assist you in conducting a walkthrough and identifying information needed for the tool. So when that's released is really going to help you conduct this whole walkthrough. It's going to give you a step-by-step process to follow to gather information, and then you're going to be able to use that information that you gathered during your water assessment to go back and use the tool and help you identify some projects. In addition, in the meantime, before that tool is released, if you wanted to take a look at what you have so far, you could look at some example checklists that we have in Appendix B of WaterSense at Work, of that big BMP guide. There are a few checklists that you can print out and bring around with you. And as a reminder, as I mentioned, Energy Star's Portfolio Manager tool can also be used to track water use by source over a period of time, as well as energy use. Now that you know where water is being used, you can start to develop your facility's water balance. So you'll want to use sub-meter data you gathered during your assessment, any engineering estimates, equipment specifications, and any other assumptions to estimate how much water is used by each end use individually. For example, I may want to use my irrigation sub-meter to estimate how much water is used for outdoor landscaping, and then I may estimate how many times my guests are flushing the toilets, how long they're running the showers and faucets, coupled with the flush volume and flow rate information of those fixtures to then determine how much water is used in my guest rooms. So I'll have a separate breakdown then of outdoor use and then what's used in my guest rooms. And in the same vein, I would want to do so for water used by my ice makers, water used by my clothes washers, water used for linen laundry, and that sort of thing. You'll want to sum the measured and estimated water uses from all of the individual end uses you identify, and that should equal your facility's total water use baseline. Once your balance is complete, if more than 10% of your water use can't be accounted for, there either may be some source of water use, some end use that you haven't identified, a leak, or some other issue needing further investigation. So you want to really rack your brain, figure out what you may be missing to try to close that loop. So you're sort of hitting this water balance from the front end and the back end. So you know what your baseline is from your bills, and then you're going to estimate and calculate the water from each end use and add those up, and those two numbers should match pretty closely. And like I said, if they're within 10%, you're probably good. You've probably accounted for everything, but if you have a big gap between those, you really want to figure out what's going on. And when released, the WaterSense Water Assessment and Project Evaluation tool will help you estimate water use from each of your end uses. So I'm showing now an example water balance for a facility. As you can see, water use is broken down by certain fixtures, equipment, or processes. For each end use, the water balance provides the annual water use estimate, percentage of total water use, and the basis for the water use estimate. So is that from metered data? Is it an engineering estimate I calculated somehow? You know, how did I get to that estimated or calculated water use? And in this case, the example facility uses water for sanitary or restroom uses, ice machines and pre-rinse spray valves in its commercial kitchen, steam sterilizers that it uses, reverse osmosis system, cooling towers, and steam boilers. Each end use was estimated and subtracted from the total, and that left 6% of the facility's water use unaccounted for. Since this wasn't greater than 10%, that facility likely doesn't have a significant leak, and they can assume that all their water end uses have been accounted for. Since the end uses are estimated, and that's never going to be exact, if you're within 10%, you're probably doing a pretty good job. So this now shows a graphic representation of the water balance for that example facility. And when you graph the data in this way, creating this pie chart, it just really clearly shows you what the largest water uses are. So in this case, the facility uses the majority of its water for cooling tower makeup, which isn't shocking. A lot of facilities in climates where they need to use a cooling tower do spend a majority of their water on that. And you can note here the unaccounted for water use is also represented in this chart, and that's approximately 6%. And to that question earlier about the 12% that was miscellaneous, that would also maybe account for some of those unaccounted for water uses that you just can't get your hand on. So you've made your commitment to water efficiency and you've assessed your facility's water use. Next, you'll want to set and communicate your water efficiency goals. You should involve staff from all levels of your organization when setting goals, all the way from your senior management to the facility managers. This way, all stakeholders can confirm that the goals are realistic and achievable. So you wouldn't want someone, at the higher level of the organization setting a goal that those actually operating the facility don't believe they could ever achieve. They've done all they can. So you really need to make sure that you're communicating among those two parties to make sure goals are realistic. This slide provides several examples of goals you may want to set. One goal, for example, could be to reduce water use by a certain percentage per year over a period of years to meet a total target % reduction. So, your baseline is 2010 and you want to reduce it by 2% per year through 2020, for example. Another example could be to complete a specific project within a certain set time frame. So you want to replace all of the fixtures in your guest rooms, the toilets, the shower heads, and the faucets within the year or within 2 years, something like that. You may also want to commit to implementing specific BMPs and WaterSense at work, establishing a linen use reduction program, or maybe gaining recognition from a federal, state, or local program, like a program hosted by your water utility. Goals should also be communicated to all employees so you can ensure that everyone's working in unison to achieve them. They can be communicated to your staff through periodic meetings, emails, maybe posters hanging up in your mechanical spaces, or by updating any standard operating procedures that may impact water use. And employees should be encouraged to provide ongoing progress reports and feedback regarding the goals so they can continue to stay involved and stay engaged and be committed to your end use and end goals. So after establishing your goals, the next step is to create an action plan to achieve them. So you'll want to identify and list all of the potential water savings projects that you found during your assessment. And in a later training webinar, we'll introduce that tool we've been talking to you so much about, and that was designed for the Hotel Challenge to assist participants in identifying potential water use reduction projects. The tool, like I mentioned, will be released later in the spring, and in the meantime, I'll just talk now about the basis for identifying some of these projects. So based on information gathered through your walkthrough, you can determine where O&M changes or retrofit and replacement projects are viable. For example, if your toilets are all flushing at 3.5 gallons per flush and you know that WaterSense labeled toilets only flush at 1.28 gallons or less, you may want to consider replacing your toilets with WaterSense labeled models because that will likely save you quite a bit of water. When identifying projects, you'll want to consider areas of your facility where water use is the highest. So if most of your water use goes to your cooling towers, for example, you'll want to consider looking at your water chemistry reports to see if you can increase your cycles of concentration and then decrease your makeup water demand. Once your projects have been identified, you can calculate the total estimated water, energy, and cost savings you can anticipate from each of them. So you want to, get a comprehensive list of everything you saw during your walkthrough, every place you think you could maybe do a bit of savings, and then really consider each of those individually and figure out which ones may give you the biggest bang for your buck. So on that note, you'll want to calculate the simple payback for each project. That's an easy way to determine whether your project is cost effective and whether it should be prioritized. To calculate payback, first determine the estimated project implementation cost. If a rebate or alternative funding is available, subtract that from the total project cost, since it will make your project more cost effective. So for example, if you plan to replace all of your toilets, for example, and they cost $300 a pop, say, but your water utility would rebate you $100 per toilet, you want to make sure to subtract that out so you're actually accounting for the real project cost that you're going to see on your bottom line. Next, you'll want to calculate the amount of water and energy you may save by implementing the project. Once you know your total utility savings, you can calculate the total utility cost savings expected using your water, wastewater, and energy rates. And then simple payback is just the project cost divided by that total utility cost savings from your project. When calculating payback, you want to be sure to use the actual water, sewer, and energy rates charged by your utilities instead of national averages or other estimates. You want to include your actual occupancy rates instead of estimates to ensure your calculations are realistic to your hotel. And you want to consider including any other reduced costs in your savings calculations. For example, if you implement a project to save water in your swimming pool, you may save money on water treatment or chemicals. You may use less detergent if you install high-efficiency laundry equipment, and you may decrease your laundry volume overall, which will save you water, energy, detergent, and money if you implement a linen reuse program. These additional savings could also be factored into your simple payback equation to make that payback more realistic and attractive. And again, the WaterSense Water Assessment and Project Evaluation tool will help you calculate the simple payback for some projects. And WaterSense at Work actually includes detailed calculations to help you determine your potential water savings. And there's actually equations listed out there for retrofit projects that you may undertake in each of your major water use areas and replacement projects. So you really want to look there to get a handle on what your water savings could be. And so the next slide shows a screenshot from the guest room tab of the Water Assessment and Project Evaluation tool. At the front end, the tool requires the user to input facility-specific information and information about toilets, faucets, and shower heads located in your hotel guest rooms. And based on those user inputs, the tool can estimate your hotel's total water use from each of these end uses. You can see up in that top left box, and provides potential water savings projects down in that bottom box, and it shows you your potential water and energy savings, utility cost savings, and an estimated payback period for each of those identified projects. And once the tool is released, WaterSense will host a training to instruct hotels on how to use the tool to help them conduct a water assessment and identify and prioritize projects. This is just one screenshot of one tab. The tool really covers a variety of end uses, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit later, in detail a little bit later, but this is just one small screenshot and small piece to show you what we're looking at. Organizing projects based on their simple payback can be a really great way to prioritize your projects, and before prioritizing your projects that may require a capital investment, you should first fix any equipment that's malfunctioning or leaking, as those issues are urgent and they can provide immediate water and cost savings. So we talked about when you're walking around and you notice a leak or you notice some really old equipment and jotting that down. It's really important to immediately act on those low-hanging fruit and get the water savings and the cost savings you can get from those easy fixes. After leaks and equipment malfunctions are fixed, you may want to tackle the most simple projects and least cost projects, such as implementing a linen and towel reuse program, installing WaterSense labeled faucet aerators is another great, really simple fix. You can just screw the aerator on and screw one aerator off and screw the next one on. It's very simple and usually low cost. You may also want to consider altering some of your fixture and equipment O&M to capitalize on no-cost water savings. So WaterSense at Work can provide you with some great O&M ideas for each water end use that you may have at your hotel. After you've tackled those, you'll want to prioritize your remaining projects, and you can do that in a number of ways using whichever method is most meaningful to your hotel. So some examples may include prioritizing your projects from the shortest to the longest payback period, from the highest to the lowest potential water savings, or the most visible to least visible project. And you should document those project priorities in a detailed action plan. And this worksheet, which is available in WaterSense at Work along with a few others like it, can help you identify and prioritize some water savings projects you may want to implement at your hotel. This worksheet provides a list of projects and asks you to determine if the project is applicable to you, if you've already implemented it, or if you want to consider or evaluate it. Once completed, by glancing down the list, you can quickly determine where you may want to focus. So just a quick worksheet just requires check marks, and you'll just look at each project on that list and quickly say if you've done it, if you consider it, or if maybe that doesn't apply to you because you don't have that equipment. And then the things that you want to evaluate, consider in that middle column can quickly become a potential project list for you. Once you've established a list of projects you may want to implement, you'll need to identify your financing sources. So first, you'll investigate whether your local water or energy utility, municipality, or state government offers rebates or incentive programs for any of your projects. Your water utility, for example, may provide a rebate for installing WaterSense labeled toilets, like I mentioned earlier, or could provide you a billing credit for reducing your water use by a certain percentage. Other green building and pollution prevention programs may provide technical assistance to reduce water use in your building. And if your hotel is prioritizing water reduction, you actually may have a budget for operating expenses or another capital funding mechanism that allows you to complete your identified projects. So you want to tap into those funds when you can. For larger, more expensive projects like a major replacement of HVAC or laundry equipment, you may consider leasing the equipment from a specialized vendor to help you out. Another option to consider is private financing. Performance-based contracts can be established with water and/or energy management service companies. These companies will usually provide the upfront capital to help you implement water and energy projects, and then they'll collect utility cost savings to pay for the projects that they initially funded. So they'll gain their money back over time plus interest. And additional cost savings could be shared between you and that company. To implement your action plan, you'll want to ensure you have time, money, and personnel needed to complete your project list and meet your water savings goals. Complete your project list as it was prioritized and documented in your action plan, and make sure that you promote key components of the action plan to all employees, and if possible, incentivize staff who are responsible for certain projects or who do their own part to achieve your water management goals. And when you're assigning responsibility to implement that action plan, consider some unique resources that may be available for these sorts of projects. You may have utilities and local municipalities who offer guidance and technical assistance for planning water efficiency projects. You could have some interns you may use, a nearby university with engineering students, or even volunteers can help you drive certain projects. So once you've done some work, you want to make sure you evaluate your progress. Review your water bills and track your meter and sub-meter readings monthly to verify savings. So earlier on, you gathered 2 to 3 years of historical water bills so you could establish your baseline. You want to make sure that you're actually keeping track of those water bills monthly and continuing to graph and track and identify trends and just see if you're actually achieving the savings that you thought you would. It's just really important to look at those water measurements because that really helps you manage your water use going forward. You can continue to use Portfolio Manager or your own personal tracking system to record that progress, and you should periodically review your action plan to make sure you're on pace to meet your water management goals. Then every 4 years, you may want to conduct a formal facility water assessment like you did during this whole process, and that will allow you to update your water balance to account for the savings you've achieved, update your goals, and develop a new list of water savings opportunities to continue making progress. And finally, you want to recognize your achievements and success. After all, a lot of hard work goes into saving water. So you'll want to explore opportunities for external recognition or awards, like participating in this hotel challenge, or maybe competing in Energy Star's annual Battle of the Buildings, which recognizes top water savers. DOE, TripAdvisor, LEED, and other groups have similar programs that offer recognition for hotels who reduce their water use. Report your progress to employees and guests via your hotel website, annual sustainability reports, or corporate newsletters. This can help you gain support for the initiatives and make water efficiency achievements more transparent. Your hotel could also establish an internal recognition and awards program for employees who contributed significantly to achieving your goals. So if you're a cooling tower operator that we talked about earlier, for example, really got behind this water savings program and they strove to reduce those cycles of concentration and save you a good chunk of your water use, you want to make sure to award that person. And throughout the whole process, the water management team should respond to employee suggestions and ideas to encourage continued participation in the program. And now, before we take questions, I just want to give you a little bit more detail on this tool that we've been talking about. Again, it will be released to the Hotel Challenge participants this spring, and we developed the tool to assist hotel managers in conducting a water assessment and identifying and prioritizing water savings projects and best management practices. The tool will require you to gather facility information like your utility rates and your construction year and help establish assumptions for water use and savings calculations. We really want it to be as specific to your facility as possible. So there are quite a few inputs that you have to put in, but that's just going to make the output, the potential projects listed to you, more relevant to your specific hotel. And in addition to estimating water use and potential water savings initiatives, the tool also helps facilities track your water use. So there's a water meter tracker, and that's compatible with Energy Star's Portfolio Manager. So you can just upload the water use that you put into Portfolio Manager, and those can be used hand in hand. And to go hand in hand with the tool, we're also developing the water assessment worksheets. And the worksheets will help you conduct the water assessment of your hotel to identify all that information that you'll need to use the tool. So you won't sit down with the tool and go into it blind. If you use those worksheets, you'll have already gathered all the information needed, and you'll be able to plug that into the tool and quickly generate an output that can help you determine what projects and best management practices may work for your hotel. And the tool assesses water use opportunities across 8 common water use areas within hotels. So I showed you that guest restroom output tab a little earlier. The tool also covers public and staff restrooms separately, since the fixtures in that area may be a little bit different than those in your guest rooms. And then guest ice and laundry services, commercial kitchens and dishwashing, whether that be a banquet facility that you may have or perhaps a restaurant that's a wholly owned part of your hotel. HVAC and mechanical systems, your hotel linen laundry, we're counting that separate from separate washers you may provide your guests. And then irrigation and also pool and spa areas. So once the user inputs facility-specific information about each end use, the tool is going to recommend best management practices and replacement projects along with estimated water, energy, and cost savings for each project, and that can help you prioritize the opportunities available. And that's all at this point. We can take another quick break and I'll answer any questions that you may have for me or perhaps for Tara on water management planning or on any of the content that we've presented so far.
Okay, our first question is for Tara.
Okay.
Is this challenge just for American hotels? They would like to know if they can promote it in Canada. They know that it's just an EPA WaterSense program.
Yeah, the answer is yes. We have several WaterSense partners located in Canada, and WaterSense products are available in Canada as well. So feel free to promote all you want. We encourage it, and I think that if you're in an area with other utilities or other hotel facilities, you can always do a regional Canadian challenge if you want to.
Okay, great. The second question is for Tara or Holly. What if it's more efficient for the utility to recycle the water? it could be considered greenwashing for hotels in Las Vegas, for example, to capture their water to be treated and reused.
So they mean to capture their own water use on site from their hotel and then reuse it, or to send that back to the water utility to treat and then use that reclaimed water? I guess the answer, either way, that's a great water efficiency practice. I don't think I got into that specifically, but during your water assessment, you do want to identify any sources of water that you could use elsewhere. So I did refer in my presentation to air handler condensate, and that if you can capture that and put that in your cooling tower, that's an excellent end use of that water that pretty much gets you a free source of water that would have otherwise gone to drain, and that can offset your potable water demand. So anytime during your assessment that you see a water use that's going to drain that may have a sufficient quality to be used in another end use, that's great, but you do want to factor in and consider the quality of that end use and make sure that that it meets the quality needed for what you're applying it to. So, for example, you wouldn't want to use water that you flush down your toilets directly for a spray irrigation system, an above-ground spray irrigation system, because that wouldn't be sanitary. So you want to consider those factors when you're evaluating those types of projects.
No, this is Tara. I wouldn't necessarily consider that greenwashing. Maybe some of the utilities in those areas might have different feelings about it, but I would say that, anytime that you're reducing your overall water use and reducing the burden on your water utility, that's a good thing. So unless you are, I think the only time that I thought it was greenwashing was when we found out about facility that reduced their water use by 30% by digging their own well into the same source that the water utility got water from. So they didn't actually reduce the water use by 30%. They just got it from somewhere else themselves instead of from the water utility.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tara. You don't necessarily want to replace, one source with another when you really want to focus on efficiency first. So you want to make sure you're reducing your total water use overall, which is why when I talked about the water balance, I really wanted you to factor in both your metered sources and your unmetered sources, because that's your total picture of the burden that you're putting on water use in your area.
And I think we have a specific case study in the WaterSense at work about a Great Lakes facility that was pulling water from the Great Lakes instead of their water utility. So there were some issues there with the way that they were counting things and the quality of the water that they were putting back into the Great Lakes. But I would say that any of those times I would consult your water utility, or, like Holly said, make sure that the end uses are sanitary before you take on a project like that.
Okay, our next question is for Holly. What if it's more efficient for the, I'm sorry, we already addressed that one. They were wondering where a good source is for comparing a hotel's water use to another hotel, so say benchmarking. Are there standards to shoot for? Is there a way to normalize to the number of guest rooms or guests?
That's a good question. I don't believe that a data set exists to allow you to do that yet at this point. And Tara, feel free to jump in here. I know that it is WaterSense's goal in the future, maybe a little bit further in the future, to help facilities be able to do just that. But unfortunately at this time, I don't think there's a data set that exists that allows you to do that right now.
No, there really isn't. Energy Star does have information like that for energy use in hotels, but there really isn't enough data available for water use per room or by unit of revenue, for example. So I think that, if there are other hotels within a portfolio, like if you're part of a larger organization, you may want to check with some other similar hotels. I think the major problem that we've encountered when talking about benchmarking is that many of the hotels have different attributes that make them very difficult to compare. So in looking at an overall benchmark, you wouldn't want to compare a facility with just guest rooms to another facility that has a giant pool outside and a golf course and banquet facilities, for example. So that's one thing that even Energy Star has had a problem with in the past few years, and so we are in search of that data. So if you have any data, we would love to see it, and we would be happy to, as soon as we have something that's useful, we'll be sharing it through this venue and on our website.
The next question is for Holly. Other than condensate, is there any typical discharge water that you find at hotels that could be reused?
That's a good question. One thing you could consider is capturing rainwater or stormwater and using that in areas of your hotel where the quality of that water would be met by the end use. For example, again, in your cooling tower, you could also use that for irrigating your landscape if you do that. Single pass cooling that you may have most commonly found, I guess, in ice machines, you really want to eliminate that single pass cooling by replacing that system with either an air-cooled system or something that reuses some processed water to cool it. But if for some reason that was not cost effective and you weren't able to do that, you could take that water, that single pass cooling water that would be going to drain, and route that elsewhere. Cooling tower is always a great end use. Usually buildings will have to be replumbed to use water for things like toilet flushing. So you just kind of have to consider what are your uses, what are the discharge points, and how do those meet up.
And one note about the rainwater catchment, Holly, is that I would contact your local utility before setting up a rainwater catchment project, just because there are a few areas and localities within the U.S. at least where that's still illegal because of water allocations and water rights issues. So you may just want to check first if you're in Colorado, for example, because there are some laws against it in some places still.
Right. And foundation drain water is also a good source of water that could be reused. I know some hotels, particularly with maybe parking garages down underneath, there may be some water that has to be pumped out of that foundation, otherwise it would flood. And sometimes that water is of sufficient quality to be used elsewhere rather than just going into the storm sewer.
I believe that was our last question at this point. So now I'd like to invite Rob with Caesars Entertainment to present a case study on Caesars water savings efforts nationwide.
Hello, everyone. I want to thank you, Tara, Holly, and Kim, for giving us the opportunity to share our water conservation efforts. I enjoyed actually the first part of this presentation, and my neck is actually a little sore from nodding in agreement throughout the whole thing. First, I'd like to introduce Caesars Entertainment. We are the world's most geographically diversified casino company, operating 63 properties across 4 different continents. Shown here are some additional statistics relating to our size that can help make it easy for you to understand why we consume just over 4 billion gallons of water each year domestic in our domestic properties alone. On the next slide, I've identified, for the most part, we do our best to try to make sure that our guests have everything they need. So, here's a list that's in agreement with what we've seen on previous slides of significant water end uses. I've tried to prioritize them in the general. By general significance. I'm assuming basically everyone on the call has similar, if not all of the same usage types. And actually the misting system pops out as one of those that for the first question we had, that could be another one that falls in that less than 10% that it may be difficult to actually meter. So I want to talk about the steps the things that we're doing that's following the 5 steps that Holly laid out. We are no strangers to commitment. We have actually a code of commitment that's our corporate ethos, and that we use that to guide our business practices. We have that is made up of 4 different pillars: commitment to our employees, a commitment to our customers and promotion of responsible gaming, and a commitment to our communities. And the fourth, and relevant here, is a commitment to responsible stewardship of the environment, and we call that our Code Green program. We've implemented Code Green teams at each of the properties to help further the goals that we set forward in this initiative that are made up of different areas of operations, such as facilities, hotel operations, food and beverage, and that's really been a successful tool for us to help push our goals and our objectives. We were actually the first casino company to join EPA's Climate Leaders program, which we set an absolute greenhouse gas reduction goal of 10% by 2013, and that was using 2007 as our baseline. We were excited to report that we exceeded our goal, and we did it 1 year early. And in fact, we actually were honored to be recognized by the EPA last week at the Climate Leadership Awards for our efforts and achievements. Once we had done that and set up our measurement and tracking for around energy and greenhouse gas, we turned our focus to water. Next slide, please. So water, we then set a baseline in 2008 and declared some goals for reduction. We set both long-term and short-term goals. The benefits of setting a short-term goal is to help ensure you're on the right path for achieving that long-term. Our long-term goal is a 15% reduction. We set the goals based on intensity, so it's using conditioned area in square footage as our normalization. So our long-term goal is a 15% reduction by 2020 with a short-term milestone of 10% by 2015. And that again is compared to our 2008 baseline. And through 2012, we've reduced that intensity by 7%. Next slide, please. So in the areas of assessing and tracking, we mentioned earlier that I had led an initiative to transition our utility bill pay to a third-party service. And the reason why that's significant is they're actually experts in the utility billing industry. So, and what they provide that other accounts payable services do not is tracking of the actual billing determinants in your invoices. So they're capturing in an online database consumption costs, unit rates, things like that we can use to help get a better detail on and help better manage our utilities. The other benefit to this is that we can provide anyone in the company user access to log in and see that. So it doesn't have to go through a central point. If somebody's got questions or concerns or needs to see the detail, they can log right in and see that. And that's based on utility meters down at the meter level. For our domestic properties, we've got just over 300 utility water meters alone. And that also includes, we were talking earlier about well water. We've got a few properties that utilize well water on site, and those consumption numbers do include that well water. The next part of it is the reporting and the communication. It's important to provide that. That's one of our functions in the corporate role that I'm in, is being able to consolidate that data and provide insight to the folks at the properties, operating the properties, that are basically in charge of the everyday water use. So they're the ones that make the differences, and we try to just bring insight to that. So we do monthly reporting of cost and consumption to identify trends and try to capture those any areas that are creeping up in consumption before they get out of hand, and take care of those proactively. We also do a quarterly scorecard. We call it a Code Green scorecard. That's pictured on the lower right, just sort of a glimpse at what we do with it. It's got our list of properties, and they're ranked on performance in energy, water, or electric, gas, water, waste, those things. And those are all weighted. They've got their own weighting and roll up into a single score, in which we rank and basically create a friendly competition between properties to basically spur improvements. Next slide, please. The next important key to this is employee engagement, making sure that the employees are aware of the goals that we've set, of their importance in the role of us achieving those goals. So here are a few examples of how we do that. We've got Code Green outreach programs that we use to educate employees on conservation, not only for work but at home. We've got big idea campaigns that provide channels for employees to share their ideas around efficiency for the companies. So that's their channel to bring it up through management to try to influence. And then again, emphasizing Code Green at home, where we reward employees for their sustainability initiatives that they've taken on and completed at their homes. The tracking and recognizing success is also important. So the tracking, reiterating the reporting, the monthly and quarterly reporting that we're doing, documenting those achievements, those annual achievements. We've just published our 4th corporate social CSR report, which identify our environmental performance. And we've also got an employee reward program called Total Return, where employees are rewarded for exceptional contributions to the initiatives. Next slide, please. So as part of the assessment, the assessments for us are definitely an ongoing effort, and it should be ongoing because there's always something changing. I think all of the property owners out there know that there's always renovations, there's always things happening. It doesn't take long for a sequence or just an operational practice to fall out of what the spec is. So you've got to constantly be looking for those and revisiting those. They're definitely dependent on, the assessments have to be dependent on specific facilities. None of our facilities are the same. They're all unique in age and size and locations. So the water consumption is unique to them and the end uses. resource use for us is a main driver. That's why we set those goals, is to make sure that everyone knows that's the overall objective. We use the Code Green program as a vehicle to drive those initiatives. And a lot of our projects and initiatives come up from the facilities through up to the corporate level, and then that's basically, again, our job to share that information, help them implement those projects, and share those as best practices around the properties. So there's a little diagram of basically the flow of how these projects, how we prioritize and identify these projects that we've got in our pipeline. Next slide, please. So once we have that pipeline of opportunities from the assessments, we have to prioritize them. We've got we take more of a centralized approach. We've got a corporate capital bucket of funding that we can then prioritize projects and implement that as we best see fit. And so, and I want to reiterate or emphasize that these projects are still, as far as a capital funding is required, they're still forced to compete with other projects that we have. It may be, you know, a renovation of a restaurant or a guest room tower. These projects are often competing with those. And one of the things that they've got over some of those projects is the risk on the ROI. These are usually, these energy and resource projects are very low risk, and you pretty much are guaranteed the returns. They're also within each other. They've got to compete on operational improvements, how they contribute to our core environmental objectives. If utility rebate programs are available in certain regions, those obviously would take priority, as that helps the funding. And I want to emphasize, don't forget about looking at not only water rebates, but electricity and gas rebates. Those are important and can often all be implemented on some of the same projects. Usually when you're saving water, you're saving electricity or gas, either through pumping or not having to heat it. So there's always usually some interaction there. And then, of course, ease and accessibility to actually implement and start realizing the savings. The biggest thing is you don't want to be spending all your time on the hard stuff to implement when you can get a lot of things done in the same amount of time and start realizing savings immediately. Next slide, please. So I put together a little matrix of examples of some of the projects we've done, starting with the upper left, where it's more of the low cost, no cost, and then moving down to the right where it's significant cost, and then also identifying the level of risk, and I'll explain what I mean by the risk. But we've implemented a guest room towel and linen program where, you know, you hang it up. If you want to keep it, leave it on the floor and we'll replace it. We've put guest education cards in the rooms to try to emphasize this and make sure that our housekeeping staff knows the guidance around that, and because if that doesn't, you know, the success is not there. So, and that's where the risk comes in. Changing behaviors is what I've found to be one of the most difficult things, and so it's more of not a risk, I guess not a traditional sense of the risk, but more a risk of, is the project going to yield returns on the efforts and realize the savings and efficiencies that you're hoping for. Going down to the bottom left, desert vegetation. That's a fairly easy one to do. Pretty low risk. You replace it with desert landscaping or xeriscape. You don't need to water it. There's very little risk that you're not going to get the returns on that. We've implemented tunnel washer conversions. We have a centralized laundry facility in Las Vegas serving the 8 strip properties that we have here. And so identifying the laundry facility use is actually easy. It's all on one building meter, a separate offsite. But we've implemented tunnel washers, which is an expensive thing to do, but it's fairly low risk. It's an efficient, proven technology. It's for those that may not know, it really is basically a tunnel with a screw inside of it that takes towels that you can continuously load, towels and linens. In one end, it moves it through the washing process. It keeps hot water in those same areas, so you're not dumping that water or having to capture heat from that. You're able to just constantly heat that and use that water. It moves it through the entire process to clean water, and then down at the end comes out for drying and folding. Another one we've done is through the corporate initiative is low-flow shower heads and aerators. We replaced over 10,000 shower heads just at the corporate through our corporate programs. I know there has been significantly more that have been initiated at the properties. So our push here was basically to try to hit the remaining opportunities. And it was significant, taking it from a shower head from 2.5 GPM down to 1.8. This one's kind of it's a fairly low risk, except for if somebody decides to take a longer shower, then you're not realizing savings. So there is still some human behavior that's associated with that. And a similar amount of aerators, sink aerators. We've done that both in the guest rooms and then in the public sinks. Guest rooms, we brought them down to 1.0 GPM, and then in public restrooms, we brought that to 0.5 GPM, and have really received no complaints, almost nothing on the flow rates, which we're very happy, because this saved a tremendous amount of water, and then also it's a large amount of natural gas, because with those showers we're not heating that water. And again, want to emphasize, there was definitely, I know more was completed on property levels. I just don't have those numbers accurately. Another example of low cost, no cost is, like Holly had mentioned earlier, on the cycles of concentration of boilers and cooling towers, setting standards. It's going to depend on your system and your location, the quality of your water, but if you can make sure and set a standard ahead of time that you know what you want to do or minimums that you want to achieve, those are large consumers. So being able to make sure that you're meeting those standards is a good, easy way to do that. Capturing rainwater was part of the discussion, and I know in Las Vegas it is still illegal to capture that rainwater, so that's something we aren't able to take advantage of, but definitely a great opportunity to do that. We've started looking at reusing some of the gray water, water from sinks and that's not that still is clean enough potentially for cooling towers or irrigation, have not implemented anything that there. So again, stressing we're paying attention to more of the low cost, no cost, and the quick wins that are out there. We still have some. Next slide, please. So lessons learned by what we've done so far. I think we're hitting a lot of the categories. We're probably not doing it as complete as we could be, but I think we're doing a great job, and definitely doing the best we can. So some of the lessons we've learned are start simple. None of the initiatives that we've done, enterprise initiatives, started as an enterprise initiative. They've all started either as a pilot. For instance, the low-flow shower heads. We piloted a floor or two of the hotel rooms. Paid attention to our guest complaints and made sure that we had none, and we actually did have none. We had it significantly drop, in fact, and the only complaints we did receive were completely unrelated to the shower heads. So that was positive and good reinforcement for us. So implement proven technologies, using trusted resources like WaterSense, knowing that those devices have been used, tested. There's little risk there. So, but always you're going to have to expect difficulties, but just make sure and learn from them. Nothing is as simple as what it might seem. You're never going to be able to plan for every little event that might happen or twist. Establishing a baseline and data management plan early is very important. Before you get too far down the road, you got to make sure you know how you're going to track things as things change, so that you make sure you're comparing apples to apples. That's very important. And then demonstrating success and celebrating it. So reinforcing to those that are doing the work, that are helping you achieve the goals, making sure that they're recognized for it. That's a huge thing, and it's contagious. So, and then the last big point is there's always more to learn. You never know everything. So, that's it. I thank you all for listening. I think we'll turn it out to questions.
Thank you, Rob.
Yep.
Does anyone have questions for Rob on the great work done by Caesars Entertainment at this point?
This is Tara, actually. I have a few questions. First, thanks so much, Rob, for sharing it's really interesting to see how some of the different programs and different types of changes have kind of played out in your different facilities. One question I had was about how you actually compare the properties. I know you'd mentioned things like age and location, and that all of the properties were ranked. So I didn't know if there was a specific way that you guys kind of do that, or if it's all kind of based on the ROI or associated risk.
Yeah, for ranking, it is a challenge for those issues that I brought up with age and location. But we try to keep track of solid count of what our air-conditioned square footage is, and we use that basically as the normalization factor and comparison. There's always a little bit of feedback we get each time we issue a report saying, you know, well, those guys aren't in the same. We had a hot summer. We had you know, these issues which you're never going to be able to fully account for, and if you do, you're going to spend every minute of the day trying to do it. So we've kind of just accepted that this is a good way to do it. there are other tools like with weather normalization, which is a great thing that Energy Star Portfolio Manager provides. It's very easy, simple to use. The new rollout is actually, from what I've used of it so far, is very helpful. So we are implementing, entering all of our buildings into Portfolio Manager. So we're using that. We're using our online database that we have, and trying to do it as fairly as possible, realizing that we're never going to get perfect.
Yeah, nothing ever comes out perfectly.
Right.
Do you ever have cases where you have to trade off between energy and water or energy and waste, and you just kind of have to take the whole package together, I'm assuming?
I can't think of an instance where we would really have sacrificed one for the other.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Normally, there's benefits on all the sides. So
Good. And then one more quick question: do you guys have like a standard for the renovation cycles or anything like that? Like after a property has been in use for 10 years, you renovate it or anything like that?
There's no set standard as far as the renovation. That's all. We're doing a lot of work now, actually putting a lot of money into the properties, refreshing them and working on those. But it's all pretty much above my head on how that planning goes. So
That's
it all
totally
depends on
fair.
economy and all of that. So yeah, couldn't answer exactly.
Okay. Kim, are there more questions?
Yes, there are. The first question, it has a couple of parts here, and it's about the shower heads that you retrofitted. Did you select a standard shower head that's required for all the facilities?
We did select. We contracted with a preferred manufacturer, and we did make sure that they knew what our standards were. So they were actually able to provide a few different options because we've got different, obviously different types of rooms, from standards to suites and villas and that we want to make sure that we're matching the look and the feel of it. So we made sure that they knew, here's our standard. We want 1.8 basically for all. There was a few instances, actually very few, where we said we could go up to 2.0. But basically, it was a few options were given out, and they were able to pick from that with any finish and all of that stuff. So it was a pretty easy adoption.
Okay. The second part of this question is the 1.8 rounded off from 1.75? Were they actually 1.75 GPM shower heads? And whether you were able to share the model information or the brand of the shower heads you installed?
Yeah, they are 1.75. We just rounded, and let me get back to you on whether I can share the models.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we have one last question. What is the motivating factor for Caesars to take on these green programs? And why do you think some hotels lag behind others?
Motivating factor, we've got a lot of employees that are actually interested in this. The Code Green program started from the properties, from employees being interested. We ended up initially with each property doing their own quote-unquote green program and initiative, and so and this is all before I was here, but they took a step back and said, well, we need to consolidate this and make sure everyone's doing things together, and that we're sharing best practices, and so we branded it Code Green, and have been implementing that ever since. Some of the challenges, I don't know. We've got some really great leadership. We've got some backing. Our CEO Gary Loveman is committed to it. He's behind us every step of the way on what we're doing. He's involved in setting the goals and making sure that we're achieving those. So we've got basically from the top down push. So I can see where you don't have that. It's difficult. We've got size, which helps us. If you're a single boutique hotel, it might be a little difficult to have the resources to be able to do that. So hope I answered that best I could anyway.
All right. Seeing no more questions, let's review the webinar. Tara?
Thanks. Thank you, Rob, for that the presentation. It actually, in your last response, it sounds like you had a good combination of both bottom-up interest and top-down support. So it sounds like that really helped to kind of really get the motivation going across the board to all the facilities. So that's a great example. So to review the webinar, to wrap things up today, I just wanted to talk about how you can assess, track, and realize payback. So the first step is to construct a water management team and make a commitment to water efficiency, such as taking the WaterSense Hotel Challenge Pledge. Next, you can review your water bills and conduct a water assessment to establish your water use baseline and develop a facility water balance. Once you know where water is used, work with your water management team to establish aggressive yet achievable goals. You can use the water assessment and project evaluation tool that will be coming out soon to help you identify opportunities for improving efficiency. Then you can prioritize your projects and your project list and document it in an action plan. As you complete tasks in the action plan, make sure to track your water use to ensure that you're on the right path. So we really encourage you, as we mentioned, to share your successes with your guests and employees and other stakeholders. It's always great, as Rob mentioned, to celebrate your successes, and it is contagious, so don't forget to celebrate those achievements, even the small ones. Next slide. So I also wanted to let you all know that we also have several other webinars that we are doing in this series, so you can listen into those, and they will also be recorded and put on our website just like this one. So the next one is another introduction of the actual challenge that I'll be doing next week, and that one's a rerun of the one we did a couple of weeks ago. That just basically talks about the basics of the challenge, what the goals are, and how they can actually get involved. So any hotels that you know of or other water utilities that you think might be interested, feel free to share the information with them. And the same goes for all the rest of the webinars. These are all, as we mentioned, specific to certain areas of water use in a facility, and we'll be having an example, like we did from Caesars today, on each one of these calls. So we encourage you all to take a look at the website. We have all the information up there, and we'll be posting the recordings there as well. So that can be your one-stop shop for the information. And you can also find the WaterSense at Work Best Management Practices guidebook there as well. So to close out the webinar, we'd like to just take a quick poll to get some feedback, since this is one of our first ones. And we are basically just trying to get some information for how we structure our next webinars and the rest of the series. So you'll see a poll pop up on your screen. If you could just take a quick answer so we can get a sense of your reactions, that would be great. And remember, as you're doing that, that you can participate in the challenge by recruiting hotels if you're not a hotel yourself. And that you can basically do by signing up on our website, and you'll be getting all sorts of good information and stories like the ones that we heard from Rob today. So it's a great opportunity to get some free information. So thank you all for attending the presentation. Please let your colleagues know or other contacts who may be interested. And we really appreciate you coming on and listening today. And you can also direct others to the recordings that'll be up on the website later. And you'll receive an email from us when it is available. So thank you very much. We look forward to talking to you again on our upcoming trainings, and have a great day.